So a lot of times when you get ready to put a septic system into your home, you realize that you don't have great soil to work with. So what we have to do is we have to treat the effluent in the tank more before you send it out to the soil. So what we have to do is put what we call an advanced treatment system on. So what you're basically doing is injecting oxygen into the tank so that you get the aerobic bacteria working harder, and that gets the effluent a higher level of treatment before it heads out to the soil. Because you have less soil to work with, you want a higher quality effluent that's heading out to the soil so the microbes have a chance to finish that last stage of cleaning it up before that water heads into your water resources. So you may see a tank like this in your yard. It's a big concrete tank. In most cases, it has 3 pillars here. This is what we call an aerated treatment unit. So it has an actual aerator inside of the middle one. You can see the air relief valve on the top. And what it's doing is it's injecting air into the middle bay of the tank and basically agitating it and putting oxygen into the tank to make the microbes nice and happy, making it aerobic and having it chew up the bad bacteria. That's what the aerobic bacteria does. So this is also a very common treatment method in Missouri as well. This one is usually paired up with either low pressure pipe or drip irrigation. So in a septic tank, you normally have a baffle, and there is a really important part to the baffle. When you have water that comes in from your house that dumps into the tank, it agitates the water a little bit. And the whole reason you have a septic tank is to have the water slow down, because what it's going to do is the solids are going to settle to the bottom of the tank, and the fats, oils, and grease are going to go to the top. That's called the scum layer. So you have a scum layer on top, the sludge on the bottom, and then in the middle is what we call the clear water layer. Now it's not really clear, but it's as clear as effluent gets. But that clear water layer is what then heads out to your field, because there shouldn't be any solids in it, and there shouldn't be any fats, oils, and grease in it. So that is what heads out to your field. This tank here gives you a picture of what that baffle looks like. That gives you an extra insurance that no sludge, no fats, oils, and greases are heading out into your field. You'll see the T-pipe in here and then where that baffle connects up to it. Most tanks have this. New tanks that come in, tanks that are really old may not have the baffle in them anymore. After time, they do deteriorate and they can fall down, and so that's sometimes an option of when you need to replace your tank so that you can get a new baffle in there and make sure it's working properly to protect your field. There are a couple more options that you can use for wastewater treatment. You may see it on different homes. This one here is an example of a peat filter. So it works really slick. So instead of after the septic tank, you got to have that additional treatment. So instead of an aerated treatment unit, the effluent is then sprayed over top of this peat, and then the microbes inside that peat clean up the effluent. It is then drained through the bottom and heads out to your lines from there to go out to the soil treatment area. So that is another method that you can use. This is another example of pod treatment. So after the effluent leaves the septic tank, it can go through this secondary treatment process. And this one in particular has 2 different methods, and one just to conserve space here at the training center. But you can see it has BioCore on one side. That's basically coconut husk. And this side has the foam cubes. So what it does is that effluent gets sprayed through those red nozzles. It gets sprayed out like a sprinkler system. And all of that effluent then trickles down over the cubes or the BioCore. The point is to increase your surface area. The more surface area you have to treat your effluent, the more microbes you're going to have and the better treatment you're going to get. So this is another treatment method, and once the water trickles down through the system, it's then collected and then sent out to the soil treatment area in your trench technology. So once you have your secondary treatment done, either from an aeration treatment unit or the pod, then what you can do is your effluent goes out to your lines, out to the field. So because you needed additional treatment, you didn't have as great a soil to work with, you had to do low pressure pipe. So here's an example of our low pressure pipe. You can see that when the pump turns on, it starts pressurizing the lines, and then it starts dosing the field, as in the water comes out of the holes that are in the pipe. Now you do have to adjust these. You can see this is just for demonstration purposes. Your goal is to get the same amount of water to come out of each hole on each line. And so there's nozzles on each end, and we have to adjust those so that we get the right amount of water coming out of each line. These types of systems do require maintenance, so you want to make sure you run maintenance on these at least once a year. And there are lots of maintenance companies around that do that for you, so you don't have to do that at home. But maintenance is important, so you're making sure that your system is working correctly, the lines aren't clogged, and that the pump is working correctly as well. So all wastewater treatment systems require maintenance. One of the ones that require the most maintenance, I would say, probably is a drip irrigation system. These systems are only used when you have very limiting soils to work with. So we talked about the aerated treatment units. Typically that's in front of these drip lines because you want higher quality effluent that's headed out to your field. Now, after it goes through an aerated treatment unit, it goes into a drip pump tank. It then goes through a series of filters because you want really filtered wastewater that then goes out to your drip lines. And you can see an example of a drip lines behind me. You can see the water slowly dripping out of these lines. The point for this is you don't have much soil to work with. So you dose the soil very lightly throughout the day, but frequently. So you're going to dose it several times a day. Let it rest, let it dry, and then you'll dose it again. So this gives time for the microbes to do their job, eat up the bad bacteria that's in there, but then also give it a chance to dry out and be ready for the next dose. So that's the way drip irrigation works. So periodically on some houses you will actually have a box that looks like this. It's an alarm box. It's there for a reason. If it's going off, that means you probably have a problem with your pump. So if you have one of these, it does mean that you have a pump in your tank. Pump is used when your lines are either uphill from your tank or you have to pressurize your system because you have a low pressure pipe or a drip irrigation system. So if you see one of these boxes, it just means you have an alarm system. That's good because if you have a problem with your tank, it's going to let you know when the water is too high in the tank before it backs up into your house. So this is a good thing to have. All right, so down below in here where you can't see, the pump is clear at the bottom of this plastic PVC tree. It's heavy. There's a reason we have this, so it's easier to pull up and maintain because the pump should be cleaned once a year when you do maintenance. You'll see these floats. Now you'll see one is zip tied up and that's for demonstration purposes, but then you have these other floats. One of them is a high water alarm, so that will go off and trigger this alarm if you have high water in your tank. The other ones are to trip the pump to turn on. So when the water level gets high enough in the tank, it will turn the pump on, dose your field, and then the float will go back down and then it will turn back off. So that's the way a pump tree works.